One thing is true about Will Howard. If he's locked in, it can lead to big things for the Buckeyes offense.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, here on Wednesday, September 4th in the year 2024. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Will Howard is a newcomer to Ohio State, and he really opened up the season with a solid performance. Yes, it was a little sluggish or a little slow starting for the Buckeyes offense, but once things got underway and once everybody started to get into a rhythm, we saw what Ohio State could do with Howard and Judkins and Henderson and Smith and all the other weapons that Ohio State has this year, which goes to speak volumes about something Will Howard said this week in his presser on Tuesday in regards to something that he believes about himself. And I'll just read the quote for you. Will Howard believes that, quote, if I'm locked in, that should be a green light for everyone else, end quote. One, that speaks about the confidence that Will Howard has in himself. But two, it also speaks about the weapons at the skill positions that Ohio State has this year. But the skill positions aside, it all starts with number 18. Number 18 is QB1. He is calling the shots. He is leading the offense. And let's just say he was as talented as Tim Tebow or as talented as Joe Burrow or a runner like Michael Vick. Let's just say Will Howard had that type of attribute or skill set about him. Great, cool. All of that is great. You can have the best skill set. You could be Peyton Manning at the line of scrimmage with all the audibles and all the checks. You can have an arm like Dan Marino. You could run like Michael Vick. You could put all that together in one player. All that is great. But if you're not locked in, that don't mean nothing. A guy that's not as talented, that understands his skill set, knows what he's doing, has the experience, and is locked in, man, y'all better watch out. And that's kind of what Will Howard is. Is he a runner like Michael Vick? No. Does he have an arm like Dan Marino? No. Does he do all the checks in the way that Peyton Manning did? No. No to all three of those. But Will Howard understands what he is as a player. Will Howard understands what his skill set is, how he fits into the Buckeyes offense, and how he's supposed to lead it. He understands all of those things. And in your debut anywhere, I don't care if you're the starting quarterback at Ohio State or you are starting a new job, your first day, your introduction to anything, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. You're going to have a few nerves inside of you. That's just the way it's going to be. Now, as the game progresses, as things go, as you get deeper into your career, well, in whatever field it may be, you start to realize, oh, I get this now. I'm picking up things that I was not able to pick up before, and in that, I am more locked in now than I was 2 weeks ago, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago. Now, Will Howard, I don't think there was a question about him being locked into being a Buckeye. I truly don't. But I think there comes something about when a guy is getting his feet under him, when he was understanding what's asked of him, when he's getting a better handle on coach-to-player communication. Because for the first time in his career, that's a part of the game. Oh, also, a little side note. There is no reason this should not have been a part of the game 20, 30, 40 years ago. No reason at all. Now, I understand you may want to say, like, legitimately, I've heard people say, man, you can't really do that because coaches and teams be cutting off signals. Okay. That happens all over the place. Why? Because signals can be cut off or intercepted. That's just a part of the game. NFL, it happens. I've heard of people in the NFL getting semi-truck a conversation between semi-drivers in their feed. It just happens. It's a part of technology, but the money has been there for a long time for this to actually happen. It's weird that it's happening now, but I'm glad it's happening now because Will Howard, with his experience and Chip Kelly being up in the sky, what are you going to find? Chip Kelly's going to be able to see some things. He'll be able to call some things but also have a better viewpoint of, hey, this is why I'm calling this. Look out for this. A little bit of something that Chip Kelly, nor Ryan Day, nor Will Howard had access to prior to this year. But if Will Howard is locked in, think about what that means for the offensive line. Think about what that means for the tight ends. Think about what that means for everybody else on the offense. Even think about what that means for the coaches and the rest of the team. If Will Howard is locked in and he understands what he needs to do and he understands his strengths, his weaknesses, his limitations, and he gets all of that, watch out. Now, Western Michigan's the next team, and I was watching some of their of the tape from the game against Wisconsin. They did some good things. Won the game 28-14 over Wisconsin. Passing game, run game. We'll talk all about that tomorrow, about what to expect from Western Michigan when they have the ball, when they're on defense, things of that nature. We'll talk about all of that. But one thing I do know is Will Howard is good enough to exploit even the strongest strength on Western Michigan's defense. Ohio State is good enough and elite enough to take advantage of every weakness that Western Michigan has. Weakness or strength, it does not matter. Ohio State is able to capitalize and take advantage of so many things the opposition has. Why? Because one, your quarterback's locked in. Two, you got weapons and you can do just about whatever you want to. Now, you're not going to come out here under the triple option. You could, realistically, in the backfield. Now, I know it wouldn't be traditional, but if you had Henderson and Judkins and Howard, I don't view, and Will Howard is not your traditional triple option quarterback. He is not. But it wouldn't shock me if at some point in time, Chip Kelly pulls out and says, oh, triple option. Let's go a little old school. Now, it's not your traditional thing. It might throw the offense off guard, but we all know that if you're on defense and you got Howard, you got Judkins, and you got Henderson. We've already seen Howard utilize his legs a little bit this early portion of the year after only one game. It's a nightmare because Judkins can run between the tackles or outside. Henderson has shown he has gotten better at running between the tackles, but we know what he is on the outside. Okay, then you got Howard, 6'5", 240, 6'5", 235, whatever you want to call it. That's a little hard to stop. Then you got Judkins and Henderson. Who's the dive man? Who's the pitch man? It really doesn't matter. Now, I think Judkins should be the dive man if in this scenario. Henderson should be the pitch man. But think about what that is for an opposition. Now, let's go a little bit further. Will Howard being locked in is going to help the offense get into a rhythm earlier. And I think that's what Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, and I know they want that. They want the team to get into a rhythm earlier and to not be slow starting. Yeah, the offensive line will be a work in progress throughout the first 3 or 4, maybe even 5 games. Figuring out things as far as chemistry, as far as how they want to utilize the running backs, that's going to be a work in progress the first 3 or 4 or 5 games. As far as the receivers go, if Abuka's open, he's going to get the ball. Literally just take what the defense gives you. And with that mindset, just realizing, hey, if he's locked in, it should be a green light, not a yellow light, but a green light for everybody else. That should put fear in the people that are lined up on the other side of Ohio State's offense. Now, putting fear in the opposition's eyes or mind, that's one thing. Another thing is being at full strength while doing that. And we will discuss if Ohio State will be at full strength when they face off with Western Michigan this weekend. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, it has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And y'all, they also got the best service in Central Ohio. They have everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment. It's at Billiards Plus. They are family owned and operated. And when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before we get into mid-season form. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. Guys, you can get it all from Locked On stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Will Ohio State be at full strength when they face off with Western Michigan in prime time? One, it's weird to say that the Buckeyes are facing off with Western Michigan in prime time, because I definitely thought this was going to be a 12 noon kickoff when I looked at the schedule earlier this offseason. But no, it is in prime time. And if the Buckeyes will be at full strength, that is still up in the air, because Ryan Day said that Donovan Jackson and Cody Simon, two starters that missed the first game of the year, they're day-to-day. Now, the good thing is they had a good weekend. So you're taking steps in the right direction. Got to wait and see how practice goes this week, and then see how the status is on Thursday, Friday, maybe even make it a game-time decision before announcing if Cody Simon and Donovan Jackson will go. In regards to Cody Simon, I think the Buckeyes are fine not having him right now, because CJ Hicks, when he is aggressive, we heard it all offseason, and Jim Knowles has said, hey, if this guy is aggressive when he is, y'all better watch out. Y'all got to wait and see what Hicks does when he is aggressive out there on the field. And we saw that in game one. So I think the Buckeyes, as far as defensively at linebacker, yes, it's a boost to have Simon there. If you got three starters, that's better than having two starters. And right now, without Simon, the Buckeyes got two starters, not three. Now, it would be a little bit different if you're going up against a team like an Iowa that's going to run heavier sets. You might want to have a 4-3 look versus a 4-2-5 look. Yes, I know that means taking Jordan Hancock or potentially taking Hancock off the field. Igbenogson could be the one taking off the field, and Hancock going to the outside corner. That's a realistic thing for Ohio State this year. But no matter if it's Hancock or Igbenogson on the field at corner, whichever one it might be, you definitely want Simon to be healthy, because Simon in the middle, and then you have Styles and Hicks on either side of him at linebacker spots. That would be a lethal trio at linebacker. In regards to Donovan Jackson, though, the Buckeyes are lucky they're playing Western Michigan on Saturday. Now, the reality of this situation is, if the Buckeyes are playing, let's just say week number 2, Ohio State is playing Washington. And I mentioned Washington because Ohio State and Washington were scheduled for a home-and-home this year and next year. That went out the window when when Washington joined the Big Ten. Not exactly sure. It may be a mutual agreement to not play that game. It could have been Ohio State saying, let's not play that game. Whichever one it might be, it would have been a non-conference game. If the Buckeyes are playing Washington this weekend, even though they're a lesser Big Ten team, I think Donovan Jackson would play. But the luxury is they don't have to allow him to play, because you should be able to beat Western Michigan with Austin Servold starting at left guard. The reality is, last week was Austin Servold's first start, and he did not play a snap last year. So when everyone's looking at, the offensive line, there's issues, you got 3 new guys on the interior. 2 of the 3 haven't started a game. The other one has started a game, but it was in Tuscaloosa, not Columbus, previously. So all 3 of them are new to the Buckeyes offensive line. You should expect issues. If Austin Servold starts and Donovan Jackson can't play this weekend, what do you expect? Servold to play better. What do you expect from McLaughlin? To play better. What do you expect from Shabola at the right guard spot? To play better. Do they kind of swing Shabola and Hinsman? and say, oh, Hensman, you're going to play a little bit more this weekend, and Shamola, you're playing less? I don't know. I have no idea. I know Hensman's still the first backup for center and right guard, but something tells me it wouldn't shock me at all if that were the thing that was actually going to happen. One thing Ryan Day said during his presser on Tuesday was in regard to something that Ohio State owns that they can control. Ohio State controls their own destiny every single year. Not every college football team can make that statement that they control their own destiny. Some schools literally need balls to bounce their way. Fumbles, interceptions, maybe a flag that's thrown that should not have been thrown that helps the team win that game. Whatever it may be, they literally need things to go their way and bounce their way and be a little bit fortunate in maybe some bad calls being made. That's reality. But also, Ohio State's not in that situation. They're not one of those teams that needs to rely on things going their way. They have so much talent. They control their own destiny every single year. You can look back at 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to 2022 and even last year. You can look at every year in Ryan Day's tenure. Even at Clemson game where Justin Fields threw an interception to Nolan Turner to end the game. There are moments earlier in the game that Ohio State did not do what they needed to do. What did they do in the first quarter? First few drives that they had in that game, they did not capitalize and score touchdowns. They had field goals. I think it was, I know they had at least 2 field goals in the first few drives of the game when those needed to be touchdowns. If that simply happened and the rest of everything was the same, Ohio State wins that game. They go on to play LSU in the Natty, and we probably get one of the best national championships of our lifetime. That's the reality. But Ohio State and Ryan Day realize, and maybe that's part of the thing that Ryan Day is thinking about right now. Ohio State controls their own destiny. Do they want a first-round bye? You have the talent to win every game this year in the regular season and to win the conference. Do you want to go deep into the playoff? Yes, you have the talent to do so. You have the coaching to do so. Do you want to win the national championship? I believe they do. They've been talking about it all offseason. Ohio State has the opportunity to do that with the talent that they have, and they control that. Something else to keep in mind, not only does Ohio State control their own destiny, but they have to remember in this quest to do everything they want to do this year, every rep matters. Think about you. Maybe you are someone in high school, or maybe even now you lift weights or you run a little bit, run a few miles outside or whatever it might be, something physical that you do to help stay in shape. You know, in the weight room, the first few times you stepped into the weight room, man, it was tough. I remember when I was in 8th grade, stepped into a weight room for the first time. I was at Belgium Middle School. They allowed us to go across the street to Lawrence Central High School at the end of football season to lift weights with the football team, the football coach, Coach Tim Barthel. And I'm thinking, man, I have no idea what I am doing. I've never done a squat in my life. I mean, I have. Not under now. Air squats. It wasn't so much barbell back squats. I had never done squats before, never done bench press before, didn't know about a power clean. I had never done any of that stuff before. And those first few times I was in the weight room, man, it was tough. Man, I remember, man, I'm like, man, I'm going home sore. Literally, right now as I'm sitting, I went on Labor Day, went to the gym across the street from where my wife and I live, and it was leg day. The gym was full, so I had to do a lot of modified leg day. A couple of days later, I'm sore. That's a normal recovery process. But those early reps, even though they're a little bit tougher, you go back out there, and if you're sore, keep going. If you're sore, keep going. Why? Yeah, you got to have recovery, but why do you keep going and make sure you put in the right effort for every rep? Because every rep matters, and Ohio State needs to keep that mindset that every rep matters as they strive to accomplish all their goals in 2024. Y'all know what happens on a hump day. It's time for our stock watch. Stock up, stock down, and there's one guy we have talked about multiple times this week that shows up in this week's stock watch after the Buckeyes blow out the Akron Zips. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sports book. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. The first stock watch of the season is here. Stock up, stock down. After the Buckeyes put 50 plus on the Akron Zip, stock up on Jeremiah Smith. This man is a real deal. He looked like he was a seasoned vet in his first game in college football, which is also in the scarlet and gray. And if it wasn't for a drop early in the first minute of the game, this young man could have had over 100 receiving yards, could have had 3 receiving touchdowns, could have had a hat trick in game number 1. And we could be looking at Jeremiah Smith, and those numbers could have easily been at 150 plus. You're like, oh man, if he, not even saying he's going to keep up this pace, but if he is just a glimpse of this all year long, you're looking at guys, an all Big Ten guy, a fringe, not saying first team All-American, but he's going to make a lot of noise and compete for some of those top wide receiver honors this year because he is that good. It's one thing to hear about a guy, about how good he is, and then it's different to actually see it. And we got to see Jeremiah Smith in full display in action on Saturday. And y'all, I can't wait to see what he's going to do against Western Michigan in prime time on the Big Ten Network on Saturday night. Stock up on Ohio State's defense. We have been calling for this all season long for Ohio State's defense to have more things in the stat sheet, in the stat book. What do you want to see? You want to have more tackles for loss. You want to have more defensive touchdowns. You want to have more turnovers. You want to have more sacks. 5 sacks, 10 TFLs, 2 touchdowns, 3 forced turnovers. That's what Ohio State's defense did in game number 1. And I do expect them to continue to put pressure on the quarterback, 3, 4, 5 sacks a game. Maybe not every game, but they're pushing and making you think they can actually do it. Tackles for loss, continue to put pressure to get in the backfield. And it's not just the front 4. You got Downs, you got Ransom, you got Hicks, you got guys on the second level just flying all around and just making and creating so much chaos for the opposition. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this defense play all year. They started off like this. They're only going to get better. Watch out. If you're playing Ohio State this year and you're out there when their defense is, you better hope everything goes your way. Because if not, it can instantly be 6 points Ohio State because of a scoop and score or pick 6. Stock up on CJ Hicks because we didn't do as much conversation, hadn't have as many conversations as we probably should have about CJ Hicks because he has been grinding for this moment since he came to Columbus, working and working and working and working to get on the field and working to earn a spot and working to prove and show everyone he has what it takes to be an Ohio State linebacker starter. At some point in time, we all knew at some point in time, we believed he could be. Now he is that. And we're seeing what Hicks can do in the Buckeye uniform as a starter. Now, the thing is, it was only one game. Wait till game 5, 6, and 7 when that bad boy is in mid-season form. It's going to be scary for the other team. Stock down on Ohio State's run blocking. But as he mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be all Debbie Downer on this portion. Because you had 3 guys on the interior that are new. None of the guys on the 5 of the offensive line had ever played with a guy next to them. So Simmons had never played a game with Ceraville. Ceraville had never played a game with Simmons or McLaughlin. McLaughlin had never played a game with Ceraville or Shabola. Shabola never played a game. You get the gist, get the picture. None of the guys on the offensive line for Ohio State had ever played a game with the guy next to them in this game. So it's not all about the interior of the offensive line and the newcomers that were there. A lot of it is a continuity that this group of 5 did not have. And ultimately, it's not always, it's not their fault. Game reps are different than practice reps. Yes, they may have done some things in practice. Game's different because a guy across from you, you can't just correctly guess what he's going to do. No, they're slanting, they're stunting, maybe a delay. Maybe he might delay coming at you. Maybe you might get a linebacker coming in that you didn't think was going to come in and bam, hit you in your ear hole. All those things are going to happen in real time, and you're not able to get a jump or handle of what the guy crossing you is going to do. That's the reality. So as far as the run blocking goes, yeah, I'm down on it. But we all should have expected this from the offensive line because they're all new together. And when you're new at something in a group project, just expect some issues to come up at some point in time. Then stock down on Florida State. So on the Jay Stevens podcast, I don't normally talk about that here, but I do a weekly pick segment. And during week 1, I always pick one game on each day a game is being played. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There's at least one game being played on every day, so I pick a game. Now, when it comes to Sunday and Monday, there's only one game, so I just pick that game to win it. Pick that game because it's the only one there. I also incorrectly picked the winner of the USC LSU game, so Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, those are not the best picks for Jay. But on the podcast, I mentioned and said, Florida State, don't let me down. You let me down when you went on the other side of the pond. You let me down again? No. I was saying, don't let me. It's Boston College. Yeah, Bill O'Brien's a good coach. Easily a good coach. But it's Boston College. And what are we doing? Talking about another Florida State loss. Another one. Now, does anybody here, I don't, but you might think that Florida State is going to run the table and make the playoff and to win the ACC? I don't. Not at all. So now look at a Florida State team that's 0-2. You brought in DJU, and you're getting what DJU does when he's on the field, and now you're trying to figure out how do you right the ship. I don't know, but all I do know is this. Stock down on y'all. Y'all messed up my picks 2 weeks in a row. That's why y'all made the segment here on this show. I appreciate everyone for coming on here and tuning into the Jay Stevens podcast. Locked On Buckeyes here on a hump day. Leading into week 2, the Buckeyes' second game of the year. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day. Now go check out the Locked On College Football Podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. We are out of here, y'all, on a hump day. We'll see you next time.